The Michigan Wolverines finished the season last year in pretty remarkable fashion. There was a moment there in the middle of last year where we were all wondering, is Sherrone Moore going to get this thing turned around? Is Sherrone Moore going to actually survive to the end of the year? Because it was a point there where, man, it's like this team could finish 4-8. This team might be 5-7, and that's being somewhat optimistic with what they still had on the schedule down the stretch. And then, boom, the switch flipped, and all of a sudden, Michigan started to play Michigan-style football. And to think that they did so with the absence of any threat offensively whatsoever. No threat of the passing game, no threat offensively to score 30. So everyone that they were playing against offensively was just super, super conservative, played it close to the vest, let's not make any mistakes. And as a result, Michigan's defensive numbers were really good, but their offensive numbers were so pitiful that it just didn't quite equate to wins. But they found a way to beat Ohio State, and they found a way to beat Alabama. That's a pretty good starting point and a pretty good launch pad into year number 2 for Sherrone Moore. The big spring storyline is that offense. Can they find some positivity on that side of the ball? I love the hire they made with Chip Lindsey. Chip Lindsey has been around for a while. He spent some time at North Carolina, has been around in the Southeast for quite a while, and has done a really good job developing quarterbacks in his time. And he has one heck of a talent to develop in his time at Ann Arbor. That's the number 1 overall recruit, Bryce Underwood, who will be closely monitored throughout the spring to see whether or not he will be in position to possibly start on day 1. Now, he's going to be competing with Mikey Keene. Mikey Keene was a guy that was transferred in from Fresno State, has played a lot of football, highly experienced player, but nowhere near the ceiling that you're likely to get from the number 1 overall recruit. That quarterback battle will be fascinating. But I, having watched Michigan the last couple of years, granted, J.J. McCarthy was amazing, but the biggest strength of Michigan in the modern era has been the strength of their defensive line. And if we're going to get even more specific, the strength of their interior defensive line. And there are a couple of massive departures off the interior of the defensive line, guys that single-handedly won football games. And here they are now starting from scratch with some quality guys, quality pieces, but no one that's anywhere near as productive as what Mason Graham was in his time in the Michigan uniform, and then Kenneth Grant as well. Both those guys might end up hearing their name called in the first round. Mason Graham might end up hearing his name called in the top 3 or 4 or 5. So he's the real deal, but so is Kenneth Grant, who might be a late first-round pick. How will they be able to replace those two up front will be a big challenge. Rayshon Benny, him deciding to come back is significant, but they got to find some depth because this was a group that could go 8, 9, 10 deep when they won the national championship a couple years ago. Now there's a few more question marks about what that depth looks like. The Damon Payne addition from Alabama was big. The Trey Williams addition from Clemson was nice. But either way, who are going to be those guys to step up along the defensive line? Because if they can't adequately replace Grant and Graham, that's going to be a big, big burden for their defense there in the front 7.